I'm Ryan, this is my brother Daniel, and this is Roles in the Family. Today we are going to be reviewing So Clover, a cooperative party game about solving word association puzzles based on clues from the other players.
And if you are looking for an accessible party game that you can play with just about anyone that still has fun decisions and collaboration, So Clover is definitely one worth considering. And as always, we've got a link to So Clover down below if you want to check it out for yourself. But let's jump right into the review.
In So Clover, you need to come up with 4 clues, each associating the 2 words that have been randomly assigned to each side of your 4-leaf clover. Once all players have locked in their clues, the cards are removed and everyone works as a team to try to guess the original arrangement of the cards based on that player's clues. However, this task is made even more difficult by the inclusion of a random 5th card as a red herring.
Once the players agree on an arrangement, you submit it to the owner of that clover, who will silently remove any cards that are incorrect. The players get one more try to correct it, and then the clover is scored. 1 point for each correct card, and 2-point bonus if it was all correct on the first try. Once all clovers have been scored, the game ends and the total score can be compared to the tiers listed in the rulebook or scores from previous sessions.
There are 2 distinct phases in So Clover. First, players are all deep in thought as they try to come up with associations for each pair of words to use as their clues. Sometimes these come easily, but often there are a few that are really difficult to associate and either require a clever connection or a really loose clue.
But then you shift into what makes up the bulk of the So Clover experience, which is collaborating as a team to try to solve other players' clovers. This is filled with lively conversation as everyone tries to justify why a certain card might make sense in a specific spot. This can lead to many funny moments as associations are considered that are surprising or just outright hilarious.
And when you are on the other side of it, sitting silently while the other players discuss your clover, it is still hugely entertaining as you hear all of their reasoning and watch as they struggle to figure out what was intended by your clues. The cooperative dynamic and lack of a true win condition ensures that it's all a casual and low-pressure experience with a focus on just enjoying the process.
So Clover plays well at all its player counts from 3 to 6. The Clover theme is really just a loose tie-in to the clues being placed on the 4 sides, but it does give it a nice aesthetic.
While there is some luck in what words are found on each of your cards, and especially on the 5th random card that gets added, the overall success of the team is much more influenced by how well everyone can come up with effective clues and then collaborate to solve each clover. Setup is super simple. Just give everyone a clover, a dry erase marker, and 4 cards.
It also is a game that takes hardly any time to teach. You can cover the basics in under 30 seconds, and then the casual cooperative nature makes it easy to jump in and learn by doing. While the overall feel of games of So Clover tend to be similar, the beauty of word association games is that the English language supplies an endless number of interesting combinations that will always make each puzzle unique, both while thinking of clues and while solving the clovers.
The process of solving a clover leads to lively discussion as everyone starts throwing out ideas of where certain cards could fit. Sometimes a few get slotted confidently early, but it isn't uncommon for someone to have an idea later on how things could be moved around to make even more sense. The ambiguity of the clues and the layers of meaning hidden in the English language provide a rich landscape for discussion as the team works together.
And the difficulty of that puzzle seems to find a great balance between being too easy and discouragingly difficult. The addition of a random 5th card adds just enough chaos into the mix to throw the team off. But it still feels like you are always really close to figuring it out and have narrowed it down to just a few different options. And the more discussion it takes to gain consensus, the more exciting it is to get it right. Or the more funny it is to get it completely wrong.
And unlike many other word games, our sessions of So Clover have almost always been filled with laughter. The collaborative discussion inevitably results in players joking about possible associations or poking fun at others' suggestions, and it puts the experience into a sweet spot for party games where it balances thoughtful gameplay with humorous interaction.
But even before players reach the collaborative puzzle solving, the initial round of recording clues is a fun exercise in word association. Each pair of words sparks different ideas, and while not everyone is going to love that process, we find that most players are enjoying themselves while coming up with clues, even if they are complaining about how hard it is.
And whether you are coming up with clues, solving a clover, or listening while the other players try to solve your clover, this is a game where you feel engaged from beginning to end. Everyone is always involved, and even when you are waiting silently while your clover is being discussed, you are locked in on the discussion, often working to contain your laughter.
We keep discussing the lively and satisfying collaborative discussion that So Clover provides, but that is really assuming that all the players are working together equally and making sure their voice is heard. If some players are more timid, it may be easy for them to feel left out as the rest of the group makes decisions on how to solve each puzzle.
And sometimes you might just get two words that your brain struggles to associate in any way. We usually encourage players not to sweat it too much and just put something that is at least strong for one of the words. But it doesn't feel great when you are thinking for a long time and still can't come up with a clue that you are happy with.
So Clover is a game that doesn't really have a win condition, but rather has the group compare their score against a tier list in the rulebook. This can be a little anticlimactic, though we find it can be fun to focus on beating your own score if the game is played more than once. And now, let's get to our personal ratings for So Clover.
So Clover is a game that when I first got it, and we talk about how every year it comes to like Christmas time and it's usually like, let's try a bunch of new party games, and usually there's a few of them that land and a few of them that don't. And So Clover was the one that was kind of a home run the year that I got it. Really had a lot of fun with the family. And since then, it has really only just moved up in my estimation of it, of just working in different groups. We recently had some time to play several more games with our core family group that were just really a great reminder of how fun of an experience it is. And so I'm going to be coming out at an 8 out of 10, which my instinct, I wanted to go higher than that just because I'm thinking of it in the context of party games. And it really has moved into kind of my top tier of party games. But just the nature of party games versus other strategy games I like and some of my own personal preference, 8 tends to be kind of the ceiling for most party games. But man, like it takes a lot of what we talked about, we liked about Just One, which is cooperative party game, which kind of brings down the stakes a little bit. It makes it a more casual, and is really easy to teach. Like it's not intimidating for somebody to learn this game. But for me, it kind of steps it up in just like the interest level and my desire to want to play it and just the fun of the puzzle. And it has that, because it's leaning into the English language, and there's other games that I feel this way about, like Codenames or some of these where you're relying on associations with like randomized words from cards and stuff. It's like infinite replay value. That you're just never going to have the same game or the same situation.
And they give you plenty of cards.
Yeah. And it's kind of like double in this way because you have the initial of like, you have to make the word associations, but then it's also when the players are solving the puzzle, the other words that are in play, like all those other words, like completely change the discussion. Because if you happen to have a word that like kind of fits with something, and it's so funny when you're the person that's done the clover and you hear them go like, oh well, this has to go here, and you're like, I didn't even know that word was there, but that does make a lot of sense that you would think that, and it's very funny to watch. It just is, it kind of feels like this evergreen experience that like I just don't see myself tiring of that exercise. Now I like word association and that challenge of so like I think you're gonna probably know if you've played these types of games whether that's your kind of thing.
That's the first question you need to ask yourself. Do I like making word associations? Because if the answer is no, you're not gonna like this game.
I would say to a certain degree though, I think, let's say there's someone that doesn't really like that, I think you can still have fun. You just have to get past the very beginning of the game,
Yeah, the
where
beginning's the most
you on
stressful
your
part.
own have to come up with some. But even if you don't love it, you move into this very collaborative. It's no longer like I need to come up with a clue, and it's more like let's just talk about ideas of where things could go, which is a lot more casual. And man, does it lead to funny discussion. I mean, there's no other word association game that has us laughing as much as this game does. And like I think part of that is just because you're almost like joking about like would the player have done this?
Totally.
Like,
It's you're getting into the mind of an individual. And so there's even and this is why I think it's really fun for us as a family to play, because when you know people really well and you're like, would they say that? Or
yeah.
no, what about this? And so there's kind of almost this relational side to it as well.
Totally. Yeah, and there's even times where like there's opportunity to just make jokes like in that like your non-serious suggestions. Like, I'll just reach over and be like, actually, I think this one needs to go here. And it's really just because it's very, very funny to think about if it would go there. And so it just like facilitates a very fun and dynamic experience around the table. It only goes to 6 players, which is in the party game category can be a little bit of a limiter. And even within our family, if we have the entire family, it's like, oh, we actually have too many people for So Clover. Now you could have someone just not do a Clover, or team up or something. But yeah, it's also a game people can jump in and out of. Like, I think I remember having a play of it where like, somebody did their Clover, needed to go off and do something with the kids, and the rest of the people work on solving all the game. Like, it's just very flexible for those types of settings.
Well, I think one of the interesting things we actually said recently is there really anything could stop you from buying a second copy of So Clover
I don't think so. And I actually considered it after our recent plays. It's like, oh, it'd be nice to just have more Clovers. Now you're starting to probably get long, like if you're going to go through everybody's Clover.
Going through everybody's, but that's all fun. And
it's fun. And you need a group that like, if you got 8-9 people, can everybody like discuss,
Yeah.
But if everybody knows each other well, like in a family setting, I mean, it could still work and be very fun. I've actually seen people that have come up with like either team or competitive variants. I saw an interesting variant where like everybody does a Clover and passes it to their left, and that person has to solve it, and then like both you and that player get points on how well they did it. And so you could actually like, and that would work well with tons of people because you're just passing left, so you could do it as like a big group. But yeah, to summarize, for me, it's moved into that top tier of party games for me. I know at some point we want to do a list of our top party games, and I'm interested to see where it would land.
Well, totally. I mean, we're huge fans of party games. I mean, there's so many situations where a great party game just delivers lasting memories, and so that's why in both of our collections, party games is a key category. And for me, I absolutely love party games. And this game, I had, code names, and I've had mixed feelings with code names. I like word association. I think that's a lot of fun, but I think the downtime of wait, there was a lot of like kind of one side waiting for the other. This game for me just hits word association in what I want. I mean, and so I'm going to be coming in at actually an 8.5 out of 10, which again, like you're saying, very high for a party game. But I think the cooperative nature, I mean, my gosh, I'm almost to the point of like, do I play a party game that doesn't have a cooperative element? Because it's just so much more fun. I could,
more fun and more safe. Like there's been so many times where I've got a group that I'm kind of unsure about, and I look at my party games on the shelf, and it's like hard to reach for other ones over these cooperative ones that I'm like, oh, these are just, there's almost no way this game goes wrong.
Yeah, and so, and I think what's so fun about So Clover is I'm just gonna be saying so all the time. Every part of it is just so engaging. Obviously the opening, creating the clues. I mean, that can be, especially if you get some tough words, that can be a little stressful and whatnot. I love that. I think and man, that feeling, Ryan, when you come up with that clue and
Yeah.
maybe people won't even get it, but that is such a good connection between those two words that just seem like you couldn't have thought of any way to connect them, and you find the word that does, and it's so satisfying. So that in itself is just an immensely rewarding experience.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that shocked us about So Clover was how entertaining that whole guessing phase,
Yeah.
part of it is. And obviously it's very fun as the team, trying to solve it. And I think we underestimated how funny it could be. I mean, we're just laughing the whole time. I mean, the person whose Clover's being discussed, I mean, you're like, you're trying not to give away any visual cues of like you're way off, but you're just like dying laughing over there. But yeah, as the one who it's your Clover being discussed, that sometimes that's my favorite part, is hearing people try to then think about what you were thinking and discuss things. It's hilarious. It's interesting. It's when you get it on the first try. I mean, that's everyone, gets excited and all of that. And so, man, just the group dynamic energy feel, the game's challenging. I never feel like I never feel like I'm walking into a game that's like, oh, well, I mean, sometimes you get a Clover that maybe the words just really matched up well.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, it's almost like every outcome is still fun. Like those times where it is pretty easy, the team's like, yeah, we did it. Like we did that one. Those are great clues.
Mm-hmm.
And then the times where you really work on it a long time, if you end up getting it right, you feel like you solved this difficult puzzle. And if you end up getting it completely wrong, I find those moments are still very fun because people are either laughing or discussing as they see what the real answer is. It's like, oh, that's what you were thinking. Oh, why didn't we think of that? Or like, oh, that was so unfortunate. This fifth card got added in. Like that was really bad luck. So even those situations, the dynamic around the table is really like what you're looking for.
Totally.
So it is almost this like can't miss as you go around the table. And, maybe we're skewed a little bit by the groups we've played it with. Like we said, most of our plays of this have been with close family and friends that already have kind of this rapport of laughing and being funny together and
like working together, discussing.
And so, that's probably the best case scenario for this game. And so that's kind of where we're coming from. But like, I could see it working well, even with people you're not as familiar with, because it's almost like an icebreaker activity. The way it like gets you talking about how, these different cards could go. So
yeah, I would say, I mean, that's actually a good point. If your group, because so much of the fun for us is that discussion. And like, sure, you could just kind of be like, kind of someone just puts something there. But if you're not having that like discussion during it, maybe that, or you have a group that maybe just struggles with, discussing things openly, maybe that could make it, fall a little bit flat. I think also the only other thing is the game can feel, especially initially, because the first thing you're doing in the game is the writing the clues, can feel a bit heavier than maybe it presents itself. Like you walk up to the table as, cute Clovers and all of that. And I think sometimes, it feels like it's going to be really light. And then someone's suddenly put in this, oh my gosh, I'm like it's sometimes like you can almost see the mental like, oh wow, this is actually really hard.
Front loaded with the most thinky piece, which is the sit there by yourself without any collaboration and try to come up with clues.
So, and it's almost like, okay, even if you didn't love that, just get through it. And then you'll see the beauty of the game. And then last like slight con I have is, and I don't even know what you would do differently, but I never really love in games the scoring being just a kind of look in the rule book, and I don't know. And I don't know what else you would do, but I agree kind of to what we were saying earlier. It does just feel not super exciting.
Yeah, I find we don't really care about we really end up just comparing against previous scores.
Yeah.
And it helps if you have a lot of players, because then it's like you could get up to 36 points. Like there's a bigger range of kind of what you could score. I agree, and I don't know what you would do differently. Though we did have one game where it was, I think, a 5-point game. We got a perfect score.
Wow.
And that did feel. I think you were.
Was I in that? Was I in that game, right?
Maybe. I'll have to look back.
Okay.
It's like, oh, wait a second. When Daniel's not here,
yeah, I see a strong correlation here. Perfect score. Daniel wasn't there. Interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, I think in terms of party games, I mean, both Ryan and I are pretty couldn't be happier about So Clover and kind of where it's landing. It was pretty funny that when Ryan got it, because you talk about at Christmas, you get these party games, and so you got So Clover and Masterwords. Was that the other one?
Yeah.
Ended up Masterword played once, got rid of it immediately,
really
fell flat.
Yeah.
And So Clover, absolute gem. So there you go. Those are our thoughts on So Clover. But the real question is So Clover a game you should check out?
If you don't enjoy word association or prefer more definitive win and loss conditions in your party games, then So Clover might miss the mark.
But if you want a party game that is highly accessible, has everyone working as a team, and strikes a nice balance between thoughtful word association and funny conversation, then we wholeheartedly recommend checking out So Clover.
Hey, if you think So Clover is a game that you and your groups might enjoy, you can check it out through the link in the description below. Otherwise, we've got some other videos here that you can check out on the channel, and we will see you in the next one.